Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Yu Yu Hakusho Season 3 on Hulu. The Sensui arc, the Chapter Black arc, and I really enjoyed it, and it was a nice kind of balance, because after a tournament arc, and especially one that gets as high stakes and completely crazy and charged as what we just had, you kind of almost need one that is able to kind of do a kind of palate cleanse reset to a degree. And this one has a nice kind of balancing of doing that in the beginning and then getting us into a really thought provoking kind of arc with also very high stakes that don't seem to like push it out of balance or into like kind of fatigue territory. Now, granted, these next two seasons are vastly shorter than the Dark Tournament arc, which I'm grateful for, because even though I like the Dark Tournament arc a lot, I'm like, holy shit. A lot of the different kind of things that they're dealing with here, I could understand why it got to a point it's like, okay, we need to watch out for this one. Even though the Dark Tournament arc had a lot of crazy shit going on, this one dealt with a lot of interesting kind of themes and dynamics, and things that really need to be delved into, and it's really kind of strange. I think it's really almost really better that I was able to watch this now, because even though it's dealing with like video cassette tapes and like those kind of urban legends, it does get into the philosophical debates of like negativity and seeing all these kind of negative things and not having the kind of balancing of positive force and trying to figure out what is at the heart of certain people and what that means, and also stereotyping and shit like that. And it was nuts and really good, and I really felt for this villain that they put forth in Sensui. It's really kind of weird that you could look at this dude and be like, okay, given the wrong kind of pushes and me thinking completely differently, well, not like just changing certain things, I'd be this crazy ass motherfucker. It's really hard when you see a villain like that and be like, god damn, because his rigidity in certain things with how he viewed good and evil was kind of like how I kind of started out, but I'm like, I started to balance that kind of shit out a little bit more. Not that everything's gray. There are certain things of like, no, don't fucking do that, ya dink. And it's like, no. But let's get into it, because we will get to all of that eventually. So we start off and we see that Yusuke's kind of restless because he is a warrior foremost. And it's pretty much why he doesn't do well in school, because his abilities are more finely tuned with fighting people and saving the world and kind of shit. And he does need a certain tactical degree of shit, but like, he doesn't really see the point in doing that. Kobar's trying to like get him. I was like, look, we're at peace, we won. And that's the kind of thing. It's not hit you over the head, but what happens after you go into a tournament where you're fighting for your life, and yes, there are high stakes, and if you lose, you're going to lose a lot of people, and people are going to die. But that thrill and that exhilaration, how do you kind of deal with that in a peacetime? Now, granted, the pacing goes kind of... This is Yu Yu Hakusho pacing, so we're going to get thrown into like a lot of different kind of shit, and it's going to get amped up completely nuts as we go through. So we don't see Yusuke actively kind of handle that situation at first, though we kind of start even seeing that kind of handled more towards the end of this season, which I really like. So it's like, whatever. Then we see these kind of like this group of kids that's kind of dealing with shit we are introduced to. We see this one dude pretty much in Karama's school who's like, alright, screw that dude, I'm gonna fucking beat his ass in test scores and shit. And then we see that Yusuke pretty much gets challenged by these kids and like, alright, fine, but then he gets kidnapped. It's like, this dude beat this fucking upper echelon demon and he got kidnapped? But that's important. Oddly enough, there are a lot of shows that kind of get power scaling into a weird kind of sense where it's like, okay, this dude can fucking fart gently, like a silent but deadly, and the planet will fucking blow in two if they're not careful. But that does, yeah, that's a lot of power. But that power doesn't mean shit if you don't know how to use it, or you get fucking trapped by something. So this like little arc that we get here really works to that effect, and I really like it because it's like, oh, come to this fucking house, Kuwabara, Kurama, and Hiei. And it's funny because Hiei's kind of fucking off and doing shit, and we see Botan pretty much pull out all the different kind of like spirit detective stuff, which I like that they did, by the way, because it's like, whatever after that spirit stuff. And it's like, we gotta need this. Oh yeah, I got a whistle that can like summon demons and shit. Well, like it's the frequency on that. It's like, you better put your... And we see that Hiei was fucking around, and he fucking just like koala drops, whoof, from a tree. And then I fucking love that. He's like, I was seeing what was going on and what was making that terrible racket so I could kill it. It's like, alright, Yusuke got captured. And Hiei's like, the fuck? That dude got captured? What the hell? So, then you go to this freaky ass looking house, and we see them fight these newly done psychics. One of them being Kato, who was the one at Kurama School, and that his dealt with that he makes rules, and that there's no killing in his territory, which I thought was an interesting twist for psychics, and putting it into... I would classify them almost as support roles if you're doing different kind of fighting, because we had been pretty much introduced to mainly like actual physical kind of psychic kind of work. I would even kind of class the spirit wave like this as well, because even though it does some other kind of things, it does, you physically have to do some certain things to kind of work it. Whereas these psychics can bam their territory. Now, the weird thing is we're never explained exactly what facilitates like how big a territory is or isn't. But that's not really important into the grand scheme of the overall plot going on. So even though I'm like, I would really want to know what's going on with this, it isn't as important to the story as it's needed to. It's just to be like, hey, if a psychic pops up on your ass and is able to pop their territory, you better watch your ass. So we see that they're in there. Hiei is taking it none too seriously at all. And the thing is, this dude has the rules of you can't do violence and you can't say the word hot. Hiei's like, eat my ass, hot, boom, loses his soul, pops on down. It's like, yeah, Hiei, yeah. So then we get into a war. Kuwabara loses this because he accidentally said something together that could pretty much be turned into hot. Botan's like, yeah, you didn't say hot. Boom, she's gone. And then Kurama was able to pretty much get into a nice kind of head game with him to pretty much make it to change this thing so that way they work backwards for like taboo words. And Kurama pretty much made him make those sounds and lose his own soul. They then had to like go through more doors and everything, and they get their souls back, get into this one kind of situation, and then they get up to the part where they see the other dude, Kaido. He can trap anybody with his like if he steps on their shadow. So that's what he's been doing with Yusuke, and Yusuke's like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Well, the others pop up, and we learn that through the staircases, one of them is an imposter. That the Yana dude, the other kind of dude that was able to like get him through and tell him to use the staircases, is able to have a copy ability to copy their spirit energy, memories, pretty much everything down to the wire. And Yusuke was pretty much put in a situation like, you gotta figure this out or we're gonna kill the dude that we replaced. And he pretty much picked right in Kuwabara by just like laying him out, and that was the Yana dude. We find out that this whole situation was orchestrated by Genkai because, of course, she knew that Yusuke would probably get into that kind of mentality of being like, yeah, I can beat some motherfuckers. It's like, you have to tactically think of these situations. Yeah, power's going to help you in certain instances. But if you see that Toguro went on that other end, the younger Toguro, he went with full-on, like, burly. Now, granted, he could also move fast, too. But the thing is, if you go for just being able to just try and take someone out with one punch, you gotta hit with that punch. Now, granted, that doesn't mean you do weak or whatnot, but it's easier to take out an opponent with 1,000 cuts and wear him down rather than have one kind of earth-shattering punch that you got, but you've got only, like, a 50% chance of hitting that. It's power is one thing, but able to effectively utilize it and tactically utilize it, that's a whole other game. And I like that Genkai was able to do this, but she's like, hey, these guys popped off with psychic powers out of nowhere in Mushiori City because we got a demon hole being made. And of course, Koenma starts telling them other kind of stuff, but we also learned that Kuwabara has pretty much lost his spirit stuff, his spiritual awareness and everything, and can't use his spiritual. He's like, that's kind of weird. And the thing is, as I'm watching this and getting to the point where we kind of like lined up with where I stopped, I'm like, yeah, that was kind of weird. It is explained and explained better for what's going on. It's like, okay, so they get to Mushiori City, they see bugs and everything, and we learn like different kind of levels. We see that like psychic people get powers and everything at a certain level. Then of course we get the bugs. Then we get some low level demons, and then anything is going to be coming out because there's this kind of like pseudo space that's between the demon world and the living world. And between there's also a Kakai barrier that is able to keep out like the A class and the S class demons. These are like the big old honker motherfuckers that'll be like, hey, here's my fart, and there goes like half a continent or whatnot. Very, very bad situation for what would happen. Because, think about it. That could potentially wipe out all living world. And then Koenma would have one hell of a fucking problem of trying to deal with everything going on with that. Now, granted, that part's not brought up. Granted, I'm just like, I don't want everybody to die like that. What the fuck's going on? And, of course, Koenma is being kind of cagey on certain things, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So they kind of do some detective work. They find this this dude who could be a mind reader. He's like, yeah, I'm going to figure out. I got Yusuke pretty much figured out. But he's like, all right. He did like 30% of his energy and just like punched him. And like the air kind of knocked his ass back. But he helped him to figure out what's going on. He sees this one dude. And that's, of course, when we start getting information on Shinobu Sensui, who was the spirit detective prior to Yusuke. And what he's doing in Mushiori City is, of course, opening that up, and we get more information on that. So it was about 10 years ago. He was very gifted with spiritual awareness from a young age, and pretty much things would try and attack him in apparitions, and it was pretty much like demons bad, humans good kind of thing. And he had this very defined black and white definition of what's good and bad. But the thing is, he would put it to like a whole group of people. And we see that he starts like working with this one dude who we get more information on because since it had been in the beginning, I'm like, who the fuck is that? Is that like another Reaper, like Botan? Kind of has the same kind of like hairstyling kind of shit, so it wouldn't have been out of the realm of possibility. But we learned that it's not. But he was sent to investigate the Black Club, and that ends horribly. Koenma wanted to close the case as fast as possible, but we find that the Black Club has been buying demons and is torturing them and hurting them and doing unspeakable like rituals with them. And this breaks Sensui. He's like, everything that I believed is wrong. And it fractures his mind as well. He murders all the people and believes that all humans are evil. Now, even before he had left the employ of Koenma, he also got into the spirit world and got the Chapter Black tape. That's why I have that video cassette and everything. That plays into, like, the urban legend of, you're gonna die in 7 days if you watch this thing. And, like, it plays kind of into that trope. But this is actually a tape that's got spirit world intelligence of all the horrendous shit that humans have ever done. And that if you watch this tape alone, it would turn you against your own race. And we see that going through as the people that Sensui has garnered to his cause in his nihilistic pursuit of destroying all humans. I did not mean to make that kind of reference, but like destroying all the humans, get turned into this nihilistic kind of thing, and we see it kind of shaken up at the end. Thing is, of course, viewed in just the context of every bad thing that everybody's ever done, you would be like, okay, all humans are bad. But that's not the complete story. Evidently, there's something else that it's a set that you're supposed to watch this for, because you do need the balance of that. There are people that have done unspeakably horrible things, and there are people that have done unspeakably amazing and good things. Just like demons, because look, Kurama's a good guy. Hiei is an asshole, but he does good things. Yeah, it's more complicated than just being able to broadly paint people like that or anyone at all. And I'm just like, God damn, like he just needed that other little tick of being like, yeah, okay, the assumption that one thing can be garnered out to everybody is false. Now, granted, sometimes you get groups of people that they start like this one dude starts doing this like horrible thing, and the other one's like, I want to fucking get on that. That's the Black Club. You see him doing all these horrible things, but you do it. You are like, they are hurting demons for no purpose, and they're getting enjoyment and everything. It's wrong. You stop that. Now, granted, he went far and he was like, I will treat them like the demons that I've been killing. It's like, you should try and stop them and stop them from doing bad things, but you gotta kind of juggle that. It's like, wow, okay, I understand why he went fucking crazy, but we don't get the depths of that until like a little bit later on. So they're trying to stop this, and the thing is, the demon hole keeps like getting bigger and bigger and bigger, like exponentially. Like it accelerates to such a degree that I'm like, this is a little bit crazy. Just like kind of slow it down a little bit. Like I understand that we've got a shortened episode with. Well, I say shortened, but it's because it's compared to the Dark Tournament. It's like 20 some episodes. And it's like, all right, you don't have to go that crazy. So they are dealing with these people that they think are the 7 ones that are helping out. We see them fight this doctor dude, which is really interesting because this is the first time that Yusuke is dealing with fighting humans. And he pretty much gets into a situation where he thinks he's got to make that call of killing this doctor dude. But Kinkai's like, we don't need this dude's death on you right now, on your conscience. And they're able to kind of like stop his territory, which he was able to like send bugs that would like infect with disease and shit. And honestly, he was kind of a little OP in my opinion. Not bad. He gave Yusuke a pretty fucking good fight, but he's got that going on. He can like slice shit, like he sliced the Kaido kid's spine and shit. Almost tried to make him die looking like a suicide. He's able to like have complete control over his bodily anatomy to where he can like stop himself from feeling pain. He reattached his own arm. It's like, ooh, he's kind of beefy, he's kind of tanky. That's going to be a bitch to fight. But Yano is able to help Yusuke kind of get him into a corner and crack him out. So they took that dude out. We then had some other things going on. Of course, I had referenced that the elder Tagora brother was popped up. That kind of goes on. That really didn't need to be done. Out of the whole season, I could almost point at that and be like, that is the one element that could have been removed and nothing would have been lost. And not that it's a detriment to it at all. It's just like, okay, the only reason he's here is to get punished. And if that's pretty much it, I'm okay with that. But I'm kind of like, it's really kind of weird. I'm like, yeah, I thought we already got this done. So, all right, cool, whatever. So we've also got this sniper dude, Sensui, and his other dude, the gourmet, who has eaten Tagoro because his power is to eat things and absorb their powers. And he also eats the mind reader dude and gets his power. But they kidnap Kuwabara because at a certain point, one of his other people, Kuwabara, even though all these guys are like trying to come after him, Kuwabara decides to go out to a Metallica concert. Their kind of riff on Metallica. And him and his friends get set upon by this dude named Seaman who can like control water with his blood. He's pretty much almost drowning him, but Kuwabara is able to, with his power now being reawakened because it like went into hibernation mode to pretty much become beefier because I really like this explanation. It's like it had sensed what was going to happen and was like, motherfucker, we gotta get better. Went into like beef mode and was able to have Kuwabara have an energy sword, Jigen that he could like slice through dimensions, and he takes out Seaman without killing him, and he like carries everybody on his back. They get him into there, and I'm just gonna reference him as Seaman, even though it sounds funny as shit. He gives him a lowdown. He of course was preyed upon. This gives rise to what we understand of like Sensui's group, that he pretty much went kind of cult tactic on him, and they had all had horrible kind of things done to them varying degrees, of course, but pretty much used it to poison them, used the chapter black tape to get them to his nihilistic side to wipe out all humanity. But the thing is, Kuwabara and the rest of Yusuke's group disproved that to Seaman, and he then switches sides before Sensui and Sniper and the rest of his group pretty much come in and kidnap Kuwabara to try and use him to break the Kakai barrier, so that way all the different kind of levels of demons could come in. So, then they get into a chase sequence. Yusuke has to fuck around with the Sniper dude, which is kind of funny because he then marked him, and then anytime he wanted, he could just send shit flying at there to kill him. He did like a tractor trailer once, but Hiei popped up and pretty much like, are you done playing around with this dude? And pretty much killed his ass, but he doesn't die. And there's a little fight where Hiei pretty much gets Yusuke kind of amped up. It's like, yeah, there you go. We need to kind of get you up to this. So they all kind of like get back together, except for Kaido. He gets pretty much like fucked over by that doctor dude and sits out for like the rest of the entirety of the thing. Kaido and Yana are kind of used. They pop off and they see that they get into the next kind of psychic game master, which is this kid who did this one kind of video game thing where they kind of like go through. This is a pretty kind of funny one. We see that Genkai is a pretty slick ass gamer too, and I'm like, yeah, Granny, you awesome as shit. She like fucking does some awesome ass maneuvers. I'm like, yeah, kid, eat it. So, and Game Master's like, damn, you like fucking used your best player. And we kind of get that kind of like, they had to go through like 3 of the goblins before they faced him as the Goblin King kind of shit. But the thing is, Kurama's like, oh shit. If what happens in the game happens here, the thing is, this is just pretty much a time thing to keep it wrapped up until Sensui's able to complete the portal and be done with it. And the thing is, if they win, that kid dies. And Kurama's pissed off about that. He'll do it to help the rest of the world, but he's not fucking happy about it. So he pretty much defeats him in a game of like Tetris, and the kid dies. But we also see that Koenma pops up because he's like, I need to deal with this. This is my thing. I need to take responsibility for it. And we see later on that as Koenma was pretty much going deeper into the tunnel system, as Seaman was like getting him to the place, he does resurrect the kid because he was not told what was going on. Shinobu Sensui lured him with his great and charismatic words and told him not to do something until it was advantageous to him. It's like, he didn't care about the kid. Here's what I don't get. These guys follow this dude for this grand scheme of wiping out all humans. He's not going to care about you. And this just proved that kind of point, that this charismatic portion of Sensui didn't give a shit that he'd have to kill a kid. Granted, his whole plan would have killed all kids, but Game Master didn't fully recognize that, like, I'm gonna die. And he doesn't know how to get out of it. Because he's like, the only way to have stopped it was, he's like, oh, I'll let you win and then leave once the demon tunnel thing's done. But it's like, that means you died too, kid. Like, shit. But they kind of get in further, and Kurama is not having it. He's fucking pissed because he's got the power of, like, Yoko Kurama, but he's got that kind of sensitive side of, like, if he has to do something like this, it kind of mirrors Sensui's kind of thing. Because he's seen this other person do this horrendous fucking thing and put him in this position to do this other horrendous fucking thing. Otherwise, there will be an even greater horrendous fucking thing to happen. Oh, I understand Kurama's pissedness. And I'm with him on that. So, they're able to get in there, and then of course we see that Kuwabara has been like saying, fuck you, man. Sensui's been pretty much watching the tape, trying to time it to that the portal would open. We see that Itsuki is the psychic, but he's actually a demon that Sensui was going to kill, but he's like, what are your last words? Could you not kill me today? My favorite show is ending and I'd like to see how it ends. He's like, that's a good joke. I mean, what? And then that's how they started their thing. And the thing is, they've got that relationship, but Sensui never fucking connected it. Now we get a little bit more of it because he's able to pretty much have control over this dark soul thing that pretty much hoovers up shit. And he explains it more in there, and that Itsuki loved him, wanted to be his lover, but of course Sensui was like, nutso, and didn't really kind of go there. It does get kind of creepy at the end of the season when we get into that, but we'll get there. So they then unleash the whole gourmet thing, and Kurama chops the head off, and it's like, yeah, alright, I'm done. But then, of course, Tagoro's like, I got this, motherfucker, gonna kill y'all. But, of course, Kurama's able to, when he did that, to take off Gourmet's head, he planted this kind of sinning tree thing, so the elder Tagoro can't die, but he's stuck in, and all the sins that he's got are what harm him, so he just keeps fucking doing shit and is stuck in this thing screaming as it like, it's like, huh. And actually, when we keep doing more of the fight scene, that kind of disappear. Yeah, it's kind of a plot hole irregularity, but everybody's like, we're kind of done with this at that point, and it was something that I was like, I'm fine with going away with, so yes, I acknowledge its issue. But I'm like, okay, it's done and gone. Let's see. So they pretty much get set up because Sensui kind of wants to do it like a trial. He's the prosecution for humanity. Yusuke is the defense. So their whole fight is kind of precipitated on that. We get him doing his kind of legs and kind of kickball, kind of energy ball thing going on at first. But that is like we learned that he's got 7 personalities in his head. And that's like the Minoru one. And Yusuke kind of gets him into a position where he gets pissed off, and the Kazuya dude pops up, and his arm transforms into a gun, and he starts going crazy, and the only way for him to kind of deal with these certain things was to make personalities do these horrible things, and that the main personality of Shinobu Sensui hasn't done any of these things, so he's innocent. And Itsuke kind of brings that up, that this has to go on, because he's interested to see kind of how this happens, of like the purity versus the darkness and all that kind of shit going on. It's like, interesting, because Kuwabara, Hiei, and Seaman get like hoovered up. Well, Koenma's of course popping off, but we see that Yusuke is pretty much almost killed before Koenma pops up and tries to deal with Shinobu, tries to call him forth, and we see that he does succeed, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll fight you and kill you, and then showing that he has mastered a third form of energy, because up until this point we've had spirit energy of humans, demon energy, and then this, which is kind of like an echelon above, sacred energy, that Sensui is kind of technically too strong and can't utilize his full strength in the human world, because he'd like break shit apart. It's like, god damn. And he's just like, Yusuke really can't do much about it. Koenma tries to use his pacifier, because he used some of the energy to bring the kid back, but we don't know that at this point yet. But tries to use it to create a super barrier that it was supposed to be used in like about like 100 years or so, when there was like this real dark dire kind of thing going on. But Koenma was even going to sacrifice himself and stay stuck, because he was going to put Sensui in that kind of thing. He'd be stuck in there, and they'd both, because he feels horrible for what's going on with that. However, Yusuke's like, fuck that shit, I want to do this. No. But Sensui still got the pacifier from him and pretty much broke it and shot off the energy, so they can't do that. We then see that he just pretty much starts beating the shit out of Yusuke, and Kuwabara's like, no. He's pretty much sure that Yusuke's gonna die from this, but at first he's like, no, he'll like fake it kind of like I did. He's like, Kurama's like, no, that's not gonna happen. And of course we see that Kuwabara's trying to unleash the Jigen Tao, and he can't do it because he had only just recently done it and hasn't had full control, but he's able to get to it and slices him out, and it kind of fucks with the kind of dark entity and Itsuke. And the thing is, they get there at the last part, and Yusuke is killed, and it's like, god damn. And we see him, seeing Kuwabara, just like how he views in his relationship with Yusuke, is like, holy shit, damn. And we see that this amps up all of them. They power up Hiei and Kurama pretty much get up to A class. So does kind of Kuwabara. It's like, wow, alright, there you go. And they're like, we're gonna fuck you up, man. And the demon portal is pretty much open all the way. Demons aren't pouring out yet, but they kind of blast his ass through to pretty much demon world. It's like, what the fuck? And see, the only way Kuwabara could have went through the Kakai barrier himself, because it's only made to pretty much trap demons, which oddly enough shows a kind of problem that, granted, we are thinking a little bit kind of linearly here. We have to think in a three-dimensional space because it would be more of a net around the whole kind of space entity. But if an A or an S class got on Earth, it's pretty much trapped in there. Even if it wanted to go back or escape, or if you wanted to fucking punt it back to Demon World, you'd have to break the barrier. So it's like, that's a flaw that you probably want to look into, guys. But Kuwabara could have done what others could have potentially said were the manly thing, but he's like, no. If I fail, they'll at least punch your ass and beat your ass in the ground too. So they slash through and they go. While this is going on, we see that King Yama, Koenma's father, is like, alright. He sends in this special defense force of the spirit world sent to kind of deal with this shit. And they're like, yeah, we need you to like terminate Yusuke's body. He's like, say what now? And he's kind of like there and kind of heals him. It's like, what? Who then is like fucked up, but then starts floating, turns into this giant kind of bird thing. It's like, what the fuck? And kind of goes in through a hole into the place to kind of get to Yusuke's body. But see, Koenma's like, what are you talking about? Why do you need to destroy his body? Mazuko. It's like this atavism of the, Mazuko? Mazuko? Yeah. Pretty much this, like, S-class demon motherfucker or whatnot, like, 44 generations ago, worked out because Koenma only went back to, like, certain grandparents, like, he's human, man. It's like, yeah, it's the atavism. It's like, what? Oh, certain generations looking for the strongest kind of host, and then Yusuke pretty much, like, I guess, evidently, if you get strong enough within that 44 generational thing, and then die, you can then come back, like, demonized. And it's like, it sounds like a lot more work than it needs to be. You'd almost think it'd be a time bomb, and you reach other kind of conditions, but having the body have to die, it's kind of weird. Now, granted, this didn't happen the first time, because Yusuke wasn't trained up and really in tune with his spirit energy. So, that makes sense. I'm like, alright, we're good. But, of course, Pooh comes back, protects the body, and he's like, yeah. And, of course, he kind of fucks with him, like, yeah, when he drink your blood, and, like, kill you and eat you and kind of shit. And he's like, ah! And he's, like, putting out a lot of demon energy. You're like, alright, fuck this. Come on, pop off with me. We're gonna go, like, beat the fucking shit out of Sensui. It's like, alright. And we see that before this kind of, like, popped off that Kuwabara, Hiei, and Kurama were pretty much trying to take on Sensui, and it really wasn't working. His sacred energy, he's able to, like, coalesce into armor on himself, and he's just like, eat me. And they're pretty much, like, wrecked. But, of course, Yusuke and the Pooh and Koenma pop off into Demon World, and it's really kind of funny because they bring up to the Special Defense Force the whole thing of, like, upper echelon demons are like, yeah, we thought we were the big kind of cheeses, and you're really not. And it was kind of funny because one of those defense forces were the ones that were pretty much chasing Yoko Kurama, the fox spirit. So I kind of would have, I liked that dialogue stuff. They're like, oh, I caught that. But I kind of would have been interesting to see Kurama kind of deal with that. So Yusuke kind of pops off there. He shoots off one of his spirit blasts, and it fucks up the armor. This is armor made out of sacred energy, so him being able to do that puts him on par. So he's at S-class level, and Yusuke pretty much is at S-class level. And the thing is, he's like, yeah, my heart's not beating. And he's like, oh, welcome to being the superior race, kind of shit. It's like, yeah, our heartbeats are different than humans. And it was really kind of funny because we see them kind of like amp up, and Hiei is actually relieved and happy to see Yusuke back, where usually he's a big ass tsundere, man. All right, he's like, I'm just gonna be a giant dick to you, but I like you. All right. Kurama's like, yeah, and they get like amped up, and of course Sensui kind of remarks upon the fact that yeah, it's a big thing for someone's death to kind of amp people up, but also coming back, that's a kind of big thing too. So at first, their kind of fighting here is pretty much showcasing different kind of ways how they kind of utilize themselves. Yusuke is not as used to his demon energy and his level as he should be, so it of course doesn't get like shit canned, but he's not able to like get Sensui into like a game over kind of position that easily. So they kind of rack out, and then he's like, "Yeah, let's go over there. I kind of have it for a reason." But then he someone gets in contact with him, and he says like, "You're not utilizing your full power," and then baps him up into like people are like, "Whoa, you look like a bad alien. You stuck your finger in a light socket." It goes almost Super Saiyan level 3 kind of transformation, but it was a pretty interesting one. He gets long ass hair, fangs, more kind of like defined demon eyes, some like tattoos and shit, but in the beginning, he's got like white hair and like kind of red eyes, and just starts like fucking over Sensui, because Sensui had shifted over to a more kind of offensive role, but here Yusuke just starts like pounding on his ass and pretty much fires off a last spirit blast, and it was really interesting because I don't know if it was intentional, but he's starting it off, and when he's got his finger pointing, it's got an inverted cross first before it turns into the spirit orb blast. And the thing is, we find out that Yusuke has not been in control in this time. This is someone else. He's like, no, stop it. And you'd almost be like, why is Yusuke trying to save this dude? Because it wasn't him that won the fight. Because Sensui gets hit with this and pretty much leads to his demise, and Yusuke's trying to find ways to save him because he wasn't in control. He's like, all I know is, like, you're telling me that I, like, transformed fucking back there. I don't know what the fuck happened, and then I woke up to try and stop this motherfucker from killing Sensui, because he would have defeated him. And I understand that as a warrior. That's not a boneheaded move, in my opinion. That's him being like, it was my job to stop this and to refute this dude and beat this dude. And he didn't. And I understand that from his perspective. But we find out that Tsuki pops in. We see that, like, Sensui wanted to visit the demon world, which there were better ways to do it. And better ways than, like, brainwashing people into trying to do, like, a genocide of everyone. And that he was pretty much, he had, like, a month or so to live. He's like, yeah. And he's at peace because he was able to kind of reconcile himself together throughout this fight and throughout seeing all these things, because it was interesting. This human was fighting to destroy all humans, and then we learned that this human with demon ancestry, utilizing demon powers, was fighting to protect humans. And it kind of helped to kind of reconcile those kind of weird things, and that, yes, everybody is capable of great good and great evil, and to, like, paint it completely on, like, a group without realizing if they had done that action is wrong. And through that fight, he was able to get that kind of catharsis and die in peace. Now, Koenma was going to take him to Spirit World for judgment, and Tsuki's like, nah, man, I'm going to take him to peace. And then pretty much takes him and just, like, sits in a black hole, pretty much just, like, he's not going, like, fondling his dead body, but he's just sitting in a black hole, his dead body, talking to his corpse. I don't think that's healthy for either of them, but, So, this was a really interesting kind of thing. It was kind of a twist to be like, at the end, I'm like, okay, I could understand he wanted to be a stranger in a strange land, see it from the demon's point of view, see it from the human's point of view, and all that. I'm just like, but granted, he was a broken individual with all these different personalities, and it makes sense that it wouldn't make sense of everything going on. It's like, god damn. And we see that they're trying to fix the giant fucking hole, and Koenma's like, listen, Yusuke, I know you want to find the dude that helped you and talked to you, but we need to get back home. He's like, yeah, alright. He was like, I'll give you a few minutes. Like, let's just go home. So they go home. It's like, eat my ass, spirit dude people. And they were gonna, like, try and punish Koenma, and Yusuke's like, try that. Touch him. I'ma beat your ass. And Keiko was pretty much great with Yusuke right off the bat. She's like, wow, he really feels like himself, like at peace with himself. Because that has been a big thing with Yusuke, trying to find that kind of spot that he's good at. And they pretty much go up, and we get our epilogue kind of stuff. All the people that were pretty much put under the sway of Sensui go and return to pretty much normal lives. Now, that doesn't mean that they that the bad things that happened to them didn't mean anything. But they were able to see the full overall picture. Game Master is able to make friends and have them over, be more open to certain things. It's like, alright. The sniper dude actually didn't die and met up with the doctor dude who broke out, and even though he was pretty much going to kill, like, a hospital full of people, he's decided to use his powers to help others. It's not excusing their actions. It's showing the duality of, like, humans. We're capable of great good and great evil. And these people pushed into this kind of... Well, I say pushed, but, like, pretty much drawn to this evil. Now, granted, they had those seeds there because of the wrongs that were done to them. And since we was able to hit on those pain points completely, bring them in, reel them in to do these horrible things. But without that influence, and without the chapter black tape, they're able to do other things. The sniper dude hooks up with this other chick that we see that these student people killed this animal, and the sniper dude goes to kind of like mess with him. The doctor dude's able to create up his own thing. He changes his face and helps and heals countless people, reversing the nihilism that we were seeing of his character before. We see that Seaman is able to do better things and go on and lead a normal life, as well as the rest of the psychics that pretty much became background characters. I understand, again, guys, like, hey, don't ever use your powers again, and demons will come after you, so they go and live normal lives. It's like, okay. It gives good enough closure to be like, yeah, there's other stuff that they probably did, but we're good. I really enjoyed how this season did, like, okay, here's the setup. We did our palate cleanse. We got things done. We transitioned. Here's the whole story, and we got closure. Now, granted, it's not, like, completely written in stone or whatnot. You could extrapolate and do your own kind of thoughts and everything, but it's a good closure. The story ends. It's like, yes. Then we shift to the next one because of all the kind of repercussions. We see that Yusuke is worried of what's going on with him, what that voice was, so of course that's setting up for the next arc and all that, and I can't wait to see that. I really am glad that I was able to watch this, because it's also timely for today, because we see that, like, a lot of things, you push negative stuff going on, and you see that going on in the world, and it's like, yeah, you also need to see the good things, because otherwise, you'll start going into these crazy-ass spirals and be like, yep, let's just... it leads to horrible things. And it's like, wow, I did not expect it to line up like this, but I was really glad that it did. And Sensui was just a really good antagonistic villain, showing how you have to... Yes, you can have a sense of right and wrong, but if you stick too rigidly and paint too broad of a brush, you'll go insane and try and do horrible things. But because there was another group of just strange people that have come together throughout all these various circumstances and decided to deal with each other and compromise and figure things out, and sometimes die to unlock better and bigger powers. Things happen. Now, granted, that's a weird kind of explanation of Team Urameshi, but kind of is. I just really am glad I was able to finally see this and be like, wow, it would have been a lot better to see this when I was younger, but I'm glad I was still able to experience this right now, and what the benefit of time has given me to be like, wow, this actually fits in a nice moment for me. So I can't wait to kind of see where the next thing goes, even though I'm sad because that's the end of Yu Yu Hakusho, and it's really weird that I don't see a lot of people talk about this more often, but I understand it because there's probably a lot of different ways to try and find this anime, and there were other anime that got more of the spotlight from, like, since it's a shonen and it's a fighting anime, you get all these other kind of stuff, and you'd probably see people talk more about Dragon Ball and Bleach and all that, but this also deserves to be in one of those kind of pillars and greats too. Even with its problems. I mean, it's got its problems, mainly in pacing. Some things got accelerated to a point of like, whoa, but the thing is, you got that kind of duality going on even within the show. The Dark Tournament arc was really fucking long, and sometimes drug out a little bit. It's like, oh shit. This one, it's like, you got 3 weeks for this tunnel. Alright. Scratch that. It's pretty much like done now. Granted, I'm shortening it even more, but it's like, we got like, a week now. What? 2 days. What? Maybe like an hour? What? How did this happen? It's not like you could just be like, oh god, man. But I would definitely recommend this. Now, granted, if you can handle this kind of stuff, because this deals with, well, like, of course it's got more bloody stuff, but even just, it doesn't even really go that in depth. I mean, it shows some scenes that more outline the torture that was going on, but deals with, like, mental issues, torture, philosophical debates of, like, heavy shit. Oh, another important bit. Hiei got the Chapter Black tape, and Kurama pointed out, hey, you could use that to pretty much set up a demon rebellion or watch it every week. And I think even Hiei understands that kind of negative influence and decides to destroy the tape. Yes. So, this, it's really interesting, the kind of progression. Like, I would recommend the first season to pretty much anyone. Second season, if you're really into tournaments, yeah, but it gets a lot more violent, and if you're not into that, This one deals with all the violence, and it kind of builds on itself, and with that philosophical and all that kind of stuff, this could be very triggering for people, depending upon how that kind of shit goes on. So, I'd still recommend it to pretty much anyone, but I would highly recommend you look into what goes on within this season. And if you get to an episode that gets kind of too much for you, it's definitely alright to stop. Not everything's for everyone. And that's cool. I like this season. There's people out there that probably don't like this season. So that's alright. That's cool, man. I'm cool. I like talking about this stuff. That's why I do this. So I can't wait for the next season and then to talk about that season. So those are my opinions on this season. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.